Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the Week 4 Thursday Night Football picks between the Jaguars and the Bengals. Now, on paper, this isn't looking like the best game to watch, but for fantasy, you got a lot of good options on both sides of the football, so I'm kind of looking forward to it from a showdown perspective. So let's get started with the video. As always, if you guys enjoy the content, hit the like button, subscribe, it really helps me out. If you want a chance to win a free NBA pass, you can check out the Twitter and enter the contest, just a basic retweet, and you'll get entered into that. If you want to join us, you can visit the website. Link is in the description, dfsprocess.net. And without further ado, let's get started. So as always with the showdowns, I always take a look at the snap counts from the previous week. And one big piece of news is T. Higgins has already been ruled out of this contest. So that means you're going to see a lot of Auden Tate and some Mike Thomas as well. Both guys are super affordable. We'll get to them. But looking at the snap counts here, we'll start with the Jaguars at wide receiver. Now, they are pretty, exactly where the wide receiver snaps are coming from. It's going to come from Marvin Jones, Shenault, DJ Chark. They all played just about the same. Well, Chark and Shenault played about the same snaps, and then Jones played the most. He's been playing the most snaps through the first 3 weeks. Now, that was week 2. Taking a look at week 3. It was Marvin Jones shot up to 97. You got Chark playing 87. Shenault played 65. So you kind of separated yourself a little between the top two. You're not getting much out of the bottom. Dorsett happened to creep into the mix a little bit, playing 10% of snaps. The running back, it's basically you're getting 3/4 of the work. Well, you did get 3/4 of the work for James Robinson in week 2. Last week, it was 59-34. But you also saw James Robinson have his most productive week. So that might be a little bit of a sign of things to come. Carlos Hyde did have a very good game on the ground last week, so maybe they just kind of rode the hot hand a little bit. But if you look at week 2, it was a bunch of James Robinson, 73%. Week 1, you got a lot of James Robinson as well, 64%. So Robinson's at least going to, pretty safe bet that he's going to play at least 65% of snaps, or at least 60%. And then the tight end, they just brought in Dan Arnold. Will be interesting to see how much he plays on a short week. But I don't think he'll play a ton of snaps. He might play probably like almost half, but you could still see Hollister play a lot of snaps. They haven't been getting much out of their tight ends, but Hollister is pretty affordable and did get a good amount of targets after he not played much in the first couple weeks. That was his first week back from injury. So you should see some Hollister and some Dan Arnold tomorrow night. Now going on to the Bengals side, which is the more interesting side because without T. Higgins, you're getting a lot more value at wide receiver that we can look to play in our showdown lineups, and that is going to start with Tyler Boyd. Chase obviously is the best option to pay out for, but you got Tyler Boyd at a good tag on Draftkings, and then you got the value play. Auden Tate played 27 snaps, 57%. They didn't even get a ton of snaps out there, like 27 snaps, but he still played over 50% of the offensive snaps, so in a matchup last week. This matchup should be a lot more conducive to fantasy. They still did score points last week against the Steelers, but it's kind of a different fantasy, a kind of different pace heading into this one at home. So I think those snaps will go up for these guys here. And I do love Boyd, and I like Tate just based on the value. You have Mike Thomas as well, who played about 20% of snaps. Those two are going to fill in as the third and fourth wide receiver, Thomas and T. Higgins. And Higgins is only $400. I mean, not Higgins. Tate is only $400, and Thomas is $600. So I would prefer getting to the guy that's going to play more snaps, but he's also probably going to be a little bit popular. So if you want to be different, you can play Thomas in there. And then the running back, if you want to look at the running back for the Bengals, you know exactly who's getting the production. It's going to be Joe Mixon, who played 74% of snaps. He got a little bit for Samaje Perine last week. Week 2, it was almost exclusively Joe Mixon, 84% of offensive snaps. So Mixon looks like a great play. After a couple of quiet weeks, this is a great spot for him to just crush. He's still getting the touches. The touchdowns just haven't been there. So a lot of running backs' touchdowns haven't been there. And the targets have also just kind of fallen off. But without Higgins, I think it's a good shot. He's going to get some more targets this week. So basically looking at some of the players on here, Joe Burrow is the most expensive guy, as he probably should be. I mean, you can make a case Mixon should be up there, but Burrow gives you the high floor, high ceiling in this type of matchup. You got to like the Bengals a little bit more than the Jaguars side just based on their offense and just how they move the football so far this year. So Burrow, Mixon, they're going to become the top plays on the slate. I don't mind getting Trevor Lawrence, but he's 10-4. If you wanted to go a little bit cheaper, you can go with like some of the wide receivers on the team instead, Lawrence throwing some interceptions. He's probably going to throw at least one, maybe two again, like he has the first 3 weeks. But he's also lost a couple of fumbles, which is not very good. But if he gets like in the teens in fantasy points, that might be a little bit of a killer at that price tag. Whereas like if Marvin Jones can easily get the same amount of production, if not more production, if he happens to top 100 yards or happens to find his way into the end zone. So I don't mind getting to Marvin Jones. I do like that tag against the Bengals. James Robinson had a very productive week. That was his best of the first 3. The other 2 he got under 10 fantasy points. He found his way into the end zone, and that was kind of the difference. And he was getting a lot more targets. I think he's fine, but he's kind of a little bit expensive. His price tag just kind of jumped a little bit. I think I would prefer like Jones or go with like DJ Chark, who's only $7,200. I'd probably like getting to Boyd, who's also super cheap compared to James Robinson. Like Chark has top 13 in 2 out of 3. The targets, now that he's playing like close to 80% of snaps, I think the targets will eventually creep up. Like 3 catches out of 12 targets the first week. That is very, very crazy to see. But they should improve as he starts to build some more connection with Trevor Lawrence. I love Tyler Boyd. We saw him muscle his way into the end zone. He refused to go down last week against the Steelers. Had a pretty quiet week. Quiet game in general. Besides that, just 36 yards on 6 targets. But no T. Higgins. Boyd gives you a bunch of upside, so you got to like him. I'm not that thrilled with Chenault. His snaps went down a little bit, and he's just not been used as much as we thought. He's still getting a decent amount of looks, so he's good for like tournament options. But for me, I would like to get up to Chark, Boyd instead, or probably like go down here for like you have CJ Uzama, who has been very quiet so far, but this is just the second week without T. Higgins, so you're going to get some more snaps and some more targets, at least for some of these other guys. Dan Arnold is 44. It's a little bit, that's kind of a high price tag. If he was like low 3K range, I'd look to him, but first game after he just got traded, and it was a short week, so I don't know if he'll get a ton of work. I would probably go to like Jacob Hollister instead of going to Dan Arnold, who played a ton of snaps last week. He got 6 targets, and he's only $1,000, so he would be the tight end I'd look to on the Jaguar side. And then for the value plays here, Jamal Agnew is going to play a little bit, but he's not that. He's basically got 2 touchdowns, and those were on special teams, so maybe he can do that again, but kind of unlikely. I'd much rather prefer to get to Auden Tate, who's going to see 50+% of snaps, only 1 catch on 1 target, but we saw him have some good games last year when, before they had Jamar Chase, and before, they were getting some decent production out of Tyler Boyd a little bit. Auden Tate was getting some, he did have some big prospect appeal. He kind of hasn't gotten the opportunity, but if he happens to make a couple big plays tomorrow night, he might creep his way back into the mix. So he has a lot to play for right now. That Mike Thomas, he's $600. He did have a catch for 19 yards. He's fine as well as a value play, but I'd like to get to Tate instead. You can get to both if you wanted to, but I don't think that is probably going to be the best approach. I definitely could see one of them have a big game, but I don't think both of them will. And that's it for the value plays. So looking at some potential builds here, let's do one with Tyler Boyd at captain, just because he's a little bit affordable, so you're not breaking the bank with like 17.6 Joe Burrow. You're still able to pay up for some other guys. So in the flex, at least, I definitely want to get to Joe Burrow. You can probably try to get to Mixon as well. If you want to throw in Auden Tate, I think that's a fine idea. It leaves you with $79.50. You plug in Marvin Jones, you plug in DJ Chark, it leaves you with $100. You get a 4-2 stack, which is probably what I want to do because I do think the Bengals will win this game. So get more exposure to the team that's favored, has a higher Vegas total. And then you get 2 receivers that if they do fall behind in Jacksonville, they're going to have to throw the football to those guys. So this makes a lot of sense, this type of lineup build. If you want to completely break the bank, let's do one with Tate at captain, because all these cheap guys have to do that are going to be out there on the field. They're going to get, like Tate's going to get 50+% of snaps. All he has to do is maybe have 1 or 2 big catches, or if he happens to find his way into the end zone, he's almost guaranteed to find his way into the optimal just because he's so cheap and opens the door for everybody else. So this is the one that you can get up to Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. Probably still get to Jamar Chase. You can still get to Joe Mixon. And then you're left with $6,200 left. So maybe you might have to go to like Tyler Boyd instead. And then you can go to Marvin Jones. So you pair Lawrence with Marvin Jones, and you get Tate paired with Burrow, and then you also got Boyd mixing in there. So another potential build. It's a little bit riskier than the first one because obviously the production of Higgins isn't. I mean, they keep saying Higgins. The production of Tate isn't guaranteed, but I still think it could be worth the risk in tournaments. We'll do one with. Let's do Joe Burrow at captain is fine with Joe Mixon. Get Auden Tate in there at $400. DJ Chark at this price tag, $72. Maybe you can throw in Hollister at only $1,000. That makes some sense. And you're left with $13K, so you have plenty of room to work with in this type of build. So you could get up to Marvin Jones here, get up to Lawrence, eat some money on the table if you wanted to. Or you can probably force your way into getting to like Robinson if you wanted to do that. It's kind of a 3-3 approach. I think this is probably the worst of the 3 lineups that we've looked at. So basically, I haven't even talked about the kickers. I would look to probably the Bengals kicker I like more than the Jaguars kicker, just based on the fact that Cincinnati should be able to move the football a lot more. But I kind of like getting to the cheaper like wide receivers more than the kickers, just based on the salaries. So just kind of plugging in a small core here. I think like Tyler Boyd is going to be in the mix. I definitely want to play Joe Burrow. I like getting to Marvin Jones and then Auden Tate. At $400 makes a lot of sense. So that's about it for the DraftKings side. Let's take a look at FanDuel. All right, on FanDuel here, you got, no surprise, Joe Burrow is the most expensive guy, but he's only $500 more than Trevor Lawrence. I thought those two would be a little bit separated. So it's not much of a debate for me. I would play Joe Burrow over Trevor Lawrence. Probably even play like a guy like Joe Mixon over Trevor Lawrence, just based on the game script that I could see happening, and based on that fact that I think Cincinnati can drop close to 30 on the Jaguars defense. And then Chase and Robinson are super closely priced. Give me Jamar Chase over that, or Robinson every day. You got Jones 11.5. Probably like Chase more than him, but I like him more than Robinson. Chark is 10.5. Boyd is 10K. Like Tyler Boyd, he leaves you with 10.5 left. So you could easily get up to Lawrence, and then you're left with $6,500 if you wanted to punt with Auden Tate at $600. Like, that is most definitely fine. You have P. Ryan as like a pure tournament option. Arnold is 7K on FanDuel, so that could be a little bit more interesting than his DraftKings tag. Hyde is up to 8K, so I'm not that thrilled about it. And the Chanel is also 85. That could be interesting, but I don't think I'm getting to those guys right now. I'd rather get to Auden Tate all the way down at 6,000, or get to Mike Thomas at 55. Like, Thomas is cheaper than Tate, which he should be, but on DraftKings it's flipped. But this leaves you with $500. That's completely fine. If you wanted to upgrade a position, you can go to Chark instead, and at least get to like a 3-2 approach. So if Lawrence happens to throw a touchdown, hopefully it goes to DJ Chark in this type of build. So on FanDuel, I think you can go with both quarterbacks just based on the pricing. It's not that big of a deal. If you didn't want to play Lawrence, and you wanted to play like Marvin Jones, do that. It leaves you with $3,000. So let's see if we can get up to 9K guys. Not that thrilled about any of those guys here. I think maybe you can upgrade from Mixon if you wanted to play. I mean, if you wanted to go down to like Jamar Chase, save some more money. You got Burrow, Chase, Jones, Chark, Tate. You're left with 45, so you can get up to another a $10,500 player if you replace Auden Tate with Tyler Boyd, maybe. And you kind of get all the receivers that you want, all the big-name receivers on both sides, Boyd, Chase, Chark, and Marvin Jones. So this is another potential way to look at it. You don't have the running backs, at least Joe Mixon. But, Burrow throws 3 touchdowns, probably fine. So on FanDuel, at least, the core pieces I'm looking at are probably Joe Burrow. I like the price tag on Chase at that 12.5, but I will have Boyd, and probably picking between these two. It's kind of up to you, but Jones seems to be a guy that's kind of penciled in for more targets right now, so he's fine. Leaves you with 11.75, plenty to work with, even if you play Lawrence. So that's about it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Actually, I think probably Chase is better based on the price tag. But that's about it for the video. Thank you for watching. Best of luck tomorrow night, and I'll see you all next time.